Welcome to the September 30th meeting of the Murfreesboro City Council. Councilman Ronnie Martin has our prayer and our pledge.
Thank you, Mayor. Please bow with me. Heavenly Father, we're very thankful for our opportunity to be here and serve one another. We're thankful for the opportunity to serve our community. I'm very thankful for the opportunity to serve with the people that I sit with at this table. We'll ask a special blessing for you on those that are hurting and suffering right now with some of the healthcare needs we have in our community. Especially would ask you to place your healing hand on our Vice Mayor, Madeline Scales Harris, as she goes through receiving treatment for her illness that she's suffering with. We're wishing her a very speedy recovery, and we know she will recover very soon. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Tonight we have two nominations for the STARS Awards. As you know, STARS stands for Succeeding Through Attitudes Reflecting Service Excellence. The award is used to recognize employees who go above and beyond their normal duties in providing outstanding service. Well, for the month of July, we have Bobby Leathers. Bobby is an IT network administrator who was nominated by city employee Lissy Blythe. Lissy works with the St. Clair Senior Center. Lisa said the following about Bobby. Bobby is always helpful when solving IT problems, but he went above and beyond with his most recent issues. She was on a recorded Zoom call with valuable information that she needed right away. However, when she got the file from the meeting host, there was no content. You can imagine she was freaking out. She was upset. She called Bobby. Bobby did some quick research, found the problem, resolved it, and was able to get Lisa the information she needed to continue the meeting. Lisa states the following about Bobby. I'm grateful for his expertise, patience, and work ethic. Bobby, we want to thank you for you going the extra mile and taking care of our employees. And also for the month of August, we have two other winners. They are Bo Smith and Matthew Miles. Both of them are groundkeepers for the Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation Department. On Monday, August the 2nd, a man was riding his bike on the Greenway when he had a wreck. Bo and Matthew found the gentleman while doing some routine maintenance on the Greenway. They recognizing that he needed help, immediately they stopped what they were doing and assisted him to the utility truck and also his wrecked bike. They drove him to the nearby trailhead to meet his son. It was later determined that the gentleman had a fractured hip and had to go into surgery the next day to repair the fracture. The gentleman states the following: I'm at home now. I'm doing very well because of your employees who took the time to help me who needed some help. Bo and Matthew, we want to thank you for delivering excellent customer service. If you would come up.
Bobby is figuring out how to get people connected to Zoom calls, and all of us up here are trying to figure out how we can disconnect from Zoom calls. So, true story. All right, you have 17 items on your consent agenda. Is there anything that needs to be added or removed?
Not so moved.
Second. Motion is second. Ms. Brown, please call the roll.
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Chocolate?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. All right, we'll move to the minutes. You have the approval of the council minutes from the August 19th and the September 2nd council meetings. Any additions or deletions to the minutes?
If there are none, move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Ms. Brown, please call the roll.
Mr. LaLance? Aye. Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Chocolate?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. All right, we'll move into old business. You have land use matters ordinance 21 OZ 20, and this is rezoning property along West Northfield Boulevard. This is second and final reading. Mr. Blomley.
McFarland and members of council, and first of all, I'm going to say, Mayor McFarland, I'm going to be disappointed if you don't make a joke about the Auburn-Georgia State game this past weekend. So,
The joke was watching the game, Matthew.
tell me about it. So I figured I'd get that out of the way first.
Yeah.
That's good.
Back on September 2nd, you approved on first reading the rezoning for the Sanders Corner PCD at the corner of Sulphur Springs Road and West Northfield Boulevard. At that meeting, you approved it contingent upon them coming back on second reading with the following modifications. The development not making the public street connection to the existing Oak Haven Drive stub, and they have they have not made that connection with this plan, as you can see in the plan on the screen before you. Number two, additional landscaping being added along the northern boundary of the development, which they have done. Number three, modifications to the architecture of the gas station building to make it similar to the architecture of the other buildings on the property, which they have done. Clarifying hours of operation for the proposed uses, which they have also done. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about any of those modifications. At any rate, the revised pattern book is in your agenda materials, and it's up for second and final reading tonight.
I just had one clarification. I assume, and we didn't talk about this, and I just figured I would say it just so you could clarify, but there was some discussion about the speed cushions on that property when we were going to connect it to through to the existing subdivision. I assume that's not needed since we're not connecting it.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. The speed cushion, the speed cushions on Oak Haven Drive, when it was going to be extended to the existing neighborhood, the Planning Commission recommended the speed cushions as a function of slowing traffic from Sulphur Springs to the existing neighborhood. With that connection not being made with this development, that became a moot point.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Ms. Brown, please call the roll.
Mr. LaLance? Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Chocolate?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. We'll move to ordinance 21 OZ 27, rezoning property along New Salem's Highway. This is second and final reading.
Thank you, Mayor McFarland. This is the second final reading for the Transit Center. It was approved contingent upon an exhibit showing the overlay of the intersection improvements of New Salem Highway and Bridge Avenue that would be constructed with the New Salem Highway improvements. That exhibit has been included in your agenda packet provided by HDR, the city's transportation consultant, and I have it on the screen before you. If you have any questions regarding this exhibit, Mr. Kerr is, there's Mr. Kerr. Mr. Kerr is in the audience, as well as our consultant from HDR, if you have any questions about those roadway improvements.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Please call the roll.
Mr. LaLance?
You went-
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet,
Aye.
Mr. Wade,
Aye.
Mr. Wright,
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. We'll move to item 21, corrections to the Clary Park PUD pattern book.
Thank you, Mayor McFarland. The next item is, it is somewhat of a housekeeping matter, no matter how much our legal department doesn't like us to use that term. There were areas 2 and 6 in the Clary Park pattern book where it was very clear that single-family attached townhouse uses were the proposed use in those areas. So area 2, area 6. The master plan, you can see, clearly has townhomes. The land use table, however, had an error, and it did not include single-family attached uses as permitted uses in areas 2 and area 6. Considering that is an important clarification, we wanted to bring it before you to approve the correction. And there's also another correction in the footnotes that called out stacked flats as a type of single-family attached, but townhomes were this type of single-family attached that were identified in the pattern book. Planning Commission considered this at its September 15th meeting and recommended approval of this correction to the pattern book. If the City Council votes to approve the correction to the pattern book, then the official copy of the pattern book on file at the Planning Department will be amended to replace the incorrect page 14 with the correct page 14. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion is second.
Mr. LaLance,
Abstain.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet,
Aye.
Mr. Wade, Mr. Wright,
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. All right, we'll move into new business. We have item 22, and this is fiscal year 22 budget amendment ordinance. This is ordinance 21029.
Good evening. Our budget amendment includes some housekeeping items for the FY21 reserve that carried over from last year's budget. We're just correcting where things fell at year end versus where we projected during the budget process. And this will result in budgeted savings on this year's budget of about $308,000. We also have items to amend the 22 budget. This includes several CIP projects that council approved last week from general fund, including funding police vehicles, part of the airport taxiway F T-Hanger project, and the Parks and Rec Community Park and Skate Park. We're also amending the budget for the donation to the Regional Solid Waste Planning Board for the city's legal fees related to the Middle Point expansion. And then the Finance Department salaries and benefits need to be increased for the new Finance Director's salary, which was approved after council approved the 22 budget. There are additions for grant revenues and expenses in community development and fire. And all said, these changes increase the use of unassigned fund balance by a little over $10 million. Of this, about $9.8 million is due to those capital projects that council approved last week to be funded from general fund rather than funded through debt. I'm happy to answer any questions on these items.
Any questions?
If there aren't any, I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion is second. Please call the roll.
Mr. LaLance,
Aye.
Mr. Martin,
Abstain.
Mr. Shacklet,
Aye.
Mr. Wade,
Aye.
Mr. Wright,
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. All right, we'll move to land use matters. We have the rezoning of property north of Mercury Boulevard, and this is from planning. Matthew.
Thank you, Mayor McFarland. I'm going to keep my presentation brief because the MHA team has quite a bit of information to provide to you, and I don't want to duplicate any of that. This is the rezoning for the Parkside, which is this existing MHA development, and the Mercury Court complexes, both owned by the Murfreesboro Housing Authority. Much the same way that they redeveloped the Oakland Court project north of downtown, they wish to redevelop the Parkside and Mercury Court housing developments as well. And so the increase in the number of units in addition to the fact that the existing zoning doesn't support what they are wanting to do, the multifamily use that they're proposing. So they are requesting to rezone the property, or I should say the properties, because as you can see on the map, it actually spans about 4 blocks, and all the property is north of Mercury Boulevard and south of East Castle Street, and totals approximately 17.5 acres, currently zoned a combination of RD, residential duplex, multifamily residential 16, RS8, and CCO. They're requesting to rezone it to PUD and CCO for the specific uses and layout and architecture that are proposed in the Mercury Parkside pattern book that is included in your agenda materials. Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on this matter on August the 4th and voted to recommend approval of this request. I will mention that Housing Authority did virtual outreach back in the wintertime, had several public brainstorming sessions, opportunities for public input from the public. At the Planning Commission public hearing, there was only one gentleman who spoke, and I think he had more questions than anything else. I do want to point out that there is one modified page, and I've got it here on the screen. They have added an 8-inch mullion at the ground level of the mixed-use building. This is the building that has their offices and other non-residential uses in it, in addition to the residential uses on the upper floors. We've been working with, I say we, primarily Ms. Holly Smith, one of our principal planners, has been working with MHA's design team on a number of issues in between the Planning Commission and tonight's meeting to fine-tune a few things, and that is one thing that they've added at the request of staff, is that 8-inch mullion at the ground level of that building. So we would ask that any approval tonight be with the revised page 86 that's on the screen before you tonight. With that being said, I'd like to invite Ms. Margaret Butler, the architect for the project, to give a presentation. She has a slideshow. First, she's going to show you a video presentation of the proposed development. I'll be happy to answer any questions before or after tonight's public hearing.
Good evening. My name is Margaret Butler. I'm with McCarty Holsapple, McCarty Architects, and we're thrilled to be working with the Murfreesboro Housing Authority to provide design services for this new Mercury Park Master Plan. As Matthew mentioned, we'd like to start out with just a brief video to give an overall idea of the project. We'll review the excerpted pattern book that you have. We had to kind of reduce that a bit. It's 112 pages in its full form, so we thought you might like just the high points on that. And then I'll be happy to answer any questions. So let me just start this. All right, here we are in Mercury Plaza across the street. You see the commercial building at the corner of Mercury Boulevard and First Avenue. Now we're going down Minor Street. There's a small pocket park there on the left. We have townhomes on the right, and we also are mixing in some single family and duplex homes. We're driving down Minor Street here with a new park there on the left, again on Minor. And now we're lifting up over Minor Street again and looking north. You see the homes here as we drive down Mercury Boulevard, seeing the homes that we've developed there on the right, and now we're going to see a few more. That's Carver Street, that the little white houses that are existing, and now you begin to see going up South Hancock, how we've got homes facing Mercury and a green space there connecting to Patterson Park, the big lawn play yard out in front of Patterson Park. We're flying over Patterson Park there. And now we're at the back of Patterson Park. This is the Parkside development. This is 46 units that we'll be placing on that property, and that will be replacing the 46 units that are there now, trying to create a central courtyard in that and keep the architecture we've worked very hard with the planning department to keep the architecture traditional, to blend in with the existing neighborhood, yet give the Housing Authority an opportunity to, thank you, Holly, increase the density and provide some different uses on the site. Thank you. See, I can do full screen here if you'd like. There we go. So as Matthew mentioned, it is actually separate parcels that go for a few blocks through that area, bounded by Mercury Boulevard on the south and Castle Street on the north. We are requesting rezoning of the property to the planned unit district from the RM 16, RM 8, and with the CCO overlay. The Murfreesboro general plan here also identifying those parcels, and just noting that and what we tried to take advantage of, this property is so well positioned, so close to Patterson Park community building and the playgrounds and things there, that we tried to take every opportunity to connect to that. I know it's small, but I think you have a hard copy there with you. I'll just quickly go over the approach to this. As I mentioned, the upper northwest parcel there is Parkside. That will actually be the first phase of redevelopment in the overall project. That part, it connects to Highland as well. In that scenario, the funding mechanism for the Housing Authority, it means they need to replace exactly what is on the site, so that's what we're doing there. And as you move over down on Mercury Boulevard, helping you find your way here, we have these blocks here that we're trying to unify the blocks, and I'll walk through that a little bit, but also connect, as I mentioned, to Patterson Park. On down Minor Street, we have a new block. The whole idea, Matthew did mention that we did public engagement. I don't know if you recall when we worked on the Oakland Court project, we had a lot of great public engagement. It was during COVID, so we did that virtually. But one of the things that came out of there is that folks thought they would like to see us connect with the development, smaller scale, single-family duplex homes north, kind of weaving into the existing community, and as it came south toward Mercury Boulevard, connecting to the commercial, kind of a bigger scale there with the institutional, with the school, the community center, and the commercial across the street in Mercury Boulevard. So that's what we've really tried to do here. A little more detail. This is the Parkside property, the 46 units I mentioned. What we tried to do there, now currently on Parkside, all the parking's in the middle, and there really aren't a lot of nice outdoor spaces for residents. This is designed to put the kind of in a courtyard type scenario to give the residents a nice exterior space to be in and share, and then pushes the parking toward the interior lot lines. We are trying to connect over to the amenities with new walkways that are happening at the Patterson Park Center. The next block you'll see is on Minor Street at the corner of South Bilbro. And currently in this location is a cul-de-sac, and the current homes are around, a large paved cul-de-sac. The intent here was, again, to give the residents a nice yard, a nice common courtyard in the front, and a smaller scale street, or kind of referring to that as an alley, runs behind the homes. Very common scenario of planning for the age of the homes around. All the homes on South Bilbro face the street and have parking to the rear, and all these homes face the common court. Moving east on Minor Street, we primarily have single-family duplex on the north side of Minor. And on the south side, here's where we've created a more public park for our residents to enjoy. These homes face that public park, and they have their parking in the rear in the common parking area that also extends over to the commercial building. Here you find the blocks that are closest. This is coming off Mercury Boulevard at South Hancock Street. You see we've created this large green here that invites the neighbors over through an opening in the gateway over to Patterson Park. So we tried to celebrate that connection a little bit. And we've also included in the plan this is currently where the Rover stop is for the neighborhood, and we are creating a nice Rover pergola element bus stop area there. It's kind of a center feature of this green that extends on both sides of Hancock. And here we are on South Bilbro as it intersects with Mercury. These homes are townhomes, 2- and 3-story townhomes and row houses. As we're close to Mercury Boulevard, close across the street from Mercury Plaza, these homes have a little taller scale and create a nice street front along a larger scale road of Mercury Boulevard. And then finally, the last block is the block at the corner of Mercury Boulevard and First Avenue. What you see here is what we're calling a mixed-use building. It will have residents. We'll have 1-bedroom residents on the top floor, and on the bottom 2 floors will contain new offices for the Housing Authority, as well as some small tenants that they have, the Hope Clinic, as well as the Read to Succeed program. So that's probably brief walkthrough through the neighborhood. Next, we show street sections that you see. You begin to see the scale of the homes. We will be lining the streets with trees, sidewalks. Part of the request in rezoning is a 10-foot setback that we'll have to keep the homes kind of close to the street. It's very similar to what we're doing, as Matthew mentioned, at Oakland, and here you begin to see some sections going down the streets and what the overall feel is. We worked, as I mentioned, closely with the planning department. Even when you have attached homes, row houses, you do get the character of a little bit different. It's not the same elevation marching down the street, a little bit of the character of the streets that have the single family and duplex homes. Again, more street elevations. The bottom elevation showing how the scale of the commercial building is not too different from the 3-story row houses next door. We did include a key map for you all if you want to dig in terms of what units are where located, and then just some idea about, as we did on Oakland again, we might have the same house plan, but we try to cloak it in different elevations to give variety to the neighborhood, and just some elevations of your single family homes, several different elevations that can accommodate the duplex housing, the townhouses, Parkside townhouses, row houses at Parkside, and some at Mercury. Kind of click through that. Oops, and there is there's the commercial building. And just a palette of materials, using quite a lot of brick, hardy siding, In the commercial building, of course, the scale and the use of that one will call for a little bit different window type with storefront, some metal panels, but trying to kind of bridge that commercial and residential feel. And then the last page offers a summary of our request. And I think I can run through those if you'd like us to. I think, should I do that, Matthew, you think? Okay. And I think with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? All right, thank you. I see several board members there are out in the audience, so thank y'all. Mr. Teasley, thank you for being there. Thomas, thank y'all for being here. Do want to say we have to have a public hearing on this request, so anyone wishing to speak for or against, if you'll come to the podium, if you'll also direct all your comments to the council, if you'll state your name and address for the record, and we'll get all of your questions answered at the end of the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against, please come to the podium.
Hi, I'm Richard Baines. I live in Parkview Terrace here in Murfreesboro. I just have a question. We're spending a lot of money on sidewalks on Mercury right now. Is this plan going to dovetail with those sidewalks like at the entrance of Bilbro and Mercury? Are the two plans going to dovetail well? Who's going to drive the design of the sidewalks at Bilbro and Mercury, for example? Are the sidewalks on Bilbro now going to be wider? Is the entrance going to have a different angle? I'd hate to see us spend a lot of money on sidewalks that we're putting in now, and then 2 years down the road have to tear them up. So I would like to have that question answered.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Baines. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Matthew had one question about coordination with sidewalks and construction. Can you help us with that?
Mayor McFarland, I'd like to invite Mr. Bill Huddleston, the design engineer on the project, to come and address Mr. Baines' question.
Good evening, Mayor McFarland, members of City Council. I'm Bill Huddleston with Huddleston Steel Engineering. We've had the honor of working with Ms. Butler on this project and on the Oakland Court project. As part of this project, we were provided the city's plans for the sidewalk design along, I guess it's Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard now. Our design will be honoring that. We'll be tying our sidewalks into that to provide good pedestrian connection. We've also looked at the elevation of that new sidewalk and how we will be able to tie into it. As you know, if this rezoning matter is successful for us, we will be taking site plans back through Planning Commission that will show those details.
Okay.
Be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Any questions from the council? Mr. Rowe, do you want to, I didn't want to leave anyone out, but do you want to introduce some of your team that's here? Or, all right. I want to make sure I didn't miss anyone.
Well, this is a real exciting project. I'm just so glad to see it's been such a long time coming to address the situation in this community, and it really looks like we're taking some quantum leaps in creating and supporting and encouraging community in an area of our community that needs attention. And I thank everyone for the effort. Happened to attend some of those meetings that you had, and even in difficult times, trying to seek public's input into it. I thought you did a good job in that as well. So thank you for all the work that's been done, and with that, I'll move for approval.
Motion and second. Ms. Brown, please call the roll.
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. Thank you all for your hard work. We appreciate what you're going to do for the community. Thank you. All right, we have Planning Commission recommendations for public hearings. Mr. Blomley.
Yes, sir, Mayor McFarland. We have 3 items that need to be scheduled for public hearing. We would recommend a date of November the 18th. Be happy to answer any questions.
Move for approval.
Second.
What was that date again, Matthew?
November the 18th would
Okay.
be the Thursday before Thanksgiving.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. All right, we'll move into our other items on motion. We have an agreement for an intergovernmental services.
Mayor, this is agreement with Ramsey, Farrer, Russell, and Smith. This is our legislative affairs consultants. They provided us services for the past 4 years, and it's given us an excellent voice down at the Senate, and keeping us appraised of things, or I say the Senate, the General Assembly, that given us good insight on what's going on down at the legislature.
Any questions?
So moved.
Can I ask one question real quick? The total for this, Craig, is 50,000, is that correct?
Totals for the contract is 50,000, 25 this year and 25 next.
Second.
Motion and second.
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. We have a purchase of a replacement pump truck. Chief Folks.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is an agenda item to replace a pumper truck that's already in service. That pumper would be rolled to a standby truck or a backup truck for those, and then we would roll an additional, one of the older apparatus that we're currently using for backup out of the fleet and put it on gov deals for sale. So it's basically a standard replacement. It's in 21. It's funded in the 2021 CIP, and I would recommend for approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Ms. Brown, please call the roll.
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. We also have the purchase of a replacement ladder truck. Chief Folks.
Yeah, essentially the same thing, replacement of one of our fleet ladder trucks in 21 CIP as well.
Move for approval. Second.
Motion and second. Ms. Brown.
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. We have the purchase of some new vehicles.
Yes, 3 new vehicles, Ford Interceptor vehicles for emergency response. 2 of those will go on shift for our shift safety officers and then training officers that are there, and one of them will be as a staff vehicle, but a backup replacement for the vehicles the battalion chief and the safety officers utilize.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Quick comment. The trucks, I know we've talked about this as a council, but it looks like these are being bought through state contract, but they are being bought local, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ford to Murfreesboro.
Yep. All right.
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. We have the contract extension with the Department of Veteran Affairs.
Yes, this is a contract extension for the Fire Protection Services contract at the Department of Veteran Affairs. If approved tonight, the contract will take effect tomorrow morning or tonight at midnight, October the 1st. But it's a standard contract for us, our Fire Protection Services for the Veterans Administration facility on Lebanon Highway.
Chief, do you have any idea how many calls we get out to serve
We do not answer that many calls at that facility, mainly medical calls. But we, in addition to the calls that we respond to, and I would say guesstimating probably around 50 calls per service per year. But in addition to that, we provide some services to the staff as far as training for fire extinguishers, fire prevention services through our Community Risk Reduction Division, and of course help with anything else that they need on site there at the facility.
Does this contract require our guys to get COVID vaccinated?
If the federal mandate comes down, as far as that goes, it will either require testing or COVID vaccine.
One or the other?
Yes. It will not be a mandate as far as the vaccination, but they would have to either be tested on the basis of that. If the federal mandate comes down, we haven't received that yet, but as a contractor, we would fall under that provision.
Good questions.
Expires.
Year?
So it expired, the original contract's expiring today?
Yes.
Do we have any way to extend it for a month or two?
That is a very difficult undertaking as far as extending it a month or two.
It's a pretty arduous process to get any contract out of the federal government, but the VA seems to be even more difficult.
This is the first time that I can remember since I've been the fire chief here that we've actually had a contract before October 1st, before we've actually expired. We've continued to provide services, but the contract has not been back to us from the Veterans Administration before. This is the first time I think we've had it back to us in advance of the contract taking effect.
This contract goes back really to the days of Mr. Haley when
Long time.
we were working on negotiating at the time with the VA golf course, but it really went back to the VA not really wanting or could afford to provide fire service at their location. So it was a good. Contract originally started out, I think it was 10 or 15 years ago, at $700,000. So it's escalated over that time.
And they have some pretty significant needs as far as things that they have on site, as far as chemicals and other things like that, like any hospital would, that necessitates having a hazardous materials and a response that our capabilities provide.
And I also think the other part too with the contract is ultimately if there was a fire or an issue, if we were asked for mutual aid, I assume we would respond.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
I move for approval.
Second.
Motion second. Ms. Brown, please call the roll.
Mr. LaLance,
Abstain.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet,
Aye.
Mr. Wade,
Aye.
Mr. Wright,
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye.
thank you.
Thank you, Chief. All right, we have a purchase of school buses.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight we're seeking the approval for the purchase of 2 new school buses through a contract with Mid-South Bus. Mid-South Bus was the sole bidder in the procurement with a cost of $101,300 each. The first of these buses is to replace the school bus that was rendered inoperable due to the accident on August 13th of this year. Insurance proceeds of $95,750 will cover all but about $5,550 of the replacement bus. The second bus is one of 2 new buses identified and approved for purchase this year by our school board. The total cost of the contract is $202,600 and is charged to the county shared bond fund. The insurance proceeds of $95,750 from the totaled bus has already been reimbursed to the same fund, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Ms. Brown, please call the roll.
Mr. LaLance,
Abstain.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet,
Aye.
Mr. Wade,
Aye.
Mr. Wright,
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye.
Dr. Duke, before you, I want to give you an opportunity. In the school board meeting the other night, the Tennessee Ready and some of the statistics from the state came back about our school system, and you gave kind of a dashboard report to them. Could you just tell the council a little bit of the good news?
Absolutely. So we outperformed the state in every area. We outperformed in math, outperformed the state in 4 out of 5 areas in math, level 5 in all areas for our district, with our TVAS scores, which is the highest designation we can get in composite, in the 77th percentile for the state. A lot of good news coming out of a very, very difficult year in Murfreesboro City Schools last year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Duke, I want to tell you, you have to believe that you're in a position at a certain time for a certain reason. And I've watched you handle yourself over the last couple of months in the school board meetings, and you've it has ensured me that we have the right person that's leading our school system. And I just want to publicly say thank you for the job you're doing, for the way that you handle yourself, and the way that you've handled the school board.
I appreciate that. A pleasure to serve. Thank you very much.
All right, we have the purchase of a Ford F-150 and an Explorer.
Hey, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Before you is a request to approve the purchase of a Ford F-150 and Explorer for the Solid Waste Department. These are going to be replacing 2 vehicles that we currently have, a 1999 model and a 2000 model. And so through a state contract, total for this purchase is $59,786, and it is funded through FY21 bonds. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for Russell?
There aren't any. I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. All right, we have the purchase of,
See that word?
how do you say that, Russell?
Re-rig. Re-rig.
Oh, we have an H, so so re-rig. All right.
That's the way they spell it. H shouldn't be there. I mean, it should be. That's how they spell it. But.
Okay. Wow.
So
A rose, baby.
Silent H.
Yeah.
All right.
We've been here for a little while, Russell. Sorry, man.
All right, go.
Before this
So,
meeting even.
it looks like we're buying 1,404 residential solid waste
That is correct.
carts.
Yes, sir. So this is a request for approval to purchase these carts from Re-Rig Pacific Company. Total is $86,620, and this is budgeted in our FY22 budget.
How many residential carts do we have out now?
Out total is about 56. No, I'm sorry. That's houses. I'd have to get back with you on that.
Okay.
I would say at least 100,000 out.
So, but we're picking up how many residents a week?
So 56,000 a week.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
It's more than what yeah.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
All right, one more question. How long will 1,400 carts last us?
It's about 6 months. So we do 4 loads a year. This is 2 loads. So we'll do I'll be back at the beginning of January, February sometime for the second request.
Is that for new deployment and replacement?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So additional carts and replacement. We don't replace as many as we just sell new and additionals.
Wow. All right, we have the purchase of an automated side loader truck.
Yes. So before you is the request to purchase one automated side loader truck for the solid waste department. This is going to be a truck to add into our fleet. Just one at this time to kind of see how the new chassis operates. It's a state-of-the-art type deal, so we're pretty excited to see this one. The total for this purchase is $323,751, and it is in FY18 and FY21 bonds. I'm available for any questions.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye.
Thank you.
Russell. Raymond, you don't need any trucks, do you?
I'm always needing something there.
Everybody else is needing trucks and cars. All
Oh,
right.
sir, today I need some storm drain pipe.
All right.
So as you see before you, we have a storm drain improvement project there at Memorial and Haynes Drive. In order to do that, we did an invitation to bid on July 23rd. And Fort Line Inc. came in at $95,640, and that will be paid for out of the stormwater funds. And I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Second.
Motion is second. Ms. Brown, please call the roll.
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. We also have, I think, vehicle purchases from O&M. Mr. Gore, do you want to go ahead and, while we're buying trucks, go ahead and come up?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the opportunity to come under other business. We do have 4 vehicles, 3 replacements and 1 new vehicle that were budgeted in the water resource budget for a total of a purchase price of $115,994. Our budget was $135,000, so we're roughly $19,000 under budget. I'm available for questions if you have any, but we would recommend approval of the new vehicles and replacement vehicles. We did go out, we have a directive with our staff to go out and not only look at state contract, but solicit local vendors for bids as well.
All right. Any questions?
It's right here. I got you.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion is second. Ms. Brown, please call the roll.
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Gore.
Thank you.
All right, you have 1 beer permit and 3 special event beer permits. Ms. Brown, are they all in order?
Yes, Mayor. The beer permit for the new location at 1785 New Salem Highway for a convenience store. The applicants met all the requirements and is pending building and codes inspection, recommended for approval. And the 3 special event permits are for Believe in Bristol, Inc., for events at 1660 Middle Tennessee Boulevard on October 22nd, 3rd, and 24th. And they've met all requirements and are recommended for approval.
Okay. Any questions?
I'll move for approval.
Motion is second. Ms. Brown, please call the roll.
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. We're recommending Mr. David Gray and Mr. Steve Benefield to be reappointed to the Disciplinary Review Board. One is for the fulfillment of individual not in management, and one is for a manager of 20 or more employees.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion is second. Ms. Brown.
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. Any statements to be paid?
No.
Any other business from staff?
Mayor, we'll not meet next week because of the fall break by city schools, so we'll meet the Wednesday after that in workshop. That's when we're meeting at 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock at the airport, and we'll discuss the MED proceed.
Okay. I'm going to be coming in hot.
What else is new?
Well, my plane, I'm coming back from fall break, so
Okay.
I don't think I land until 8:30 or 9, so I'll be there.
Okay. You'll be right there?
Other things we can get done first, so. Hey, so.
Hold on one second.
Yep.
Any other business from staff?
No.
All right. Any other business from council? Mr. LaLance.
Yeah, just in the way of an update from our committee meeting at 4 o'clock today. Had some folks there, but for all of the group, I think I'm gonna just simplify this since several of us were there, but really I think the main takeaway from that meeting went through the presentation, the spreadsheet with that group, and the big takeaway, I think, everybody that's on the committee kind of did have an idea that, the far right column, basically the charitable gift side, they felt like should be a higher number. And that's, to me, I think was the biggest crux of what the feedback was, if there was feedback, that was relevant to what I think I passed along to you guys as it relates to citizen feedback from that committee, okay? So for what that's worth, it didn't really say exactly how much. I think that number's a range between the people, but again, we'll have to take that into account on the 13th. So just want to make sure and pass that along to you guys that, that was said. Okay?
Any other business from council?
And I just want to real quick compliment Rick. I sat in that meeting, like I've sat in most of those meetings, and that was a tough meeting to run, and you did a great job. There was a lot of very healthy discussion, and I think that's one of the great things about having that citizen group there is that we did do that. So thanks for spending the time, and
Appreciate it.
appreciate it.
And, you know, the thing I noticed being at that meeting, not only how well prepared and how hard you worked on it, it's really tough for a citizen group that is, Bill and I were talking about this, they're sort of shooting with a rifle and looking through a scope, and the council is really shooting with a shotgun because we've got a little more knowledge behind the scene with CIP and some of those other things. So I appreciate all the individuals. Eric Merriweather is sitting out in the audience, but to Andy Womack and the entire group who's been on,
Amy Fair and Bob Mifflin.
Yep, Amy Fair and Bob Mifflin are the group. So thank y'all for your hard work, and hopefully at our next meeting we'll be able to start coming to a conclusion on everything. So any other items? All right, seeing none, we'll stand adjourned.